Welcome back, everybody. In the last 10 years, our next guest has pretty much lived out every kid's fantasy and my own fantasies in terms of being in movies. He's been a stormtrooper on Star Wars. He's been a knight on King Arthur. He's been a soldier on Mission Impossible. I mean, welcome to the show, Jamie Chambers.
Hi, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure as well. And Jamie and I met via social media. Jamie's been great in following our account and commenting and liking, and that's how I got to know Jamie, because again, he's across the pond, he's in UK, so there's some crossover. And then I started looking at the things that you have done and started listening to how you speak on mental health issues, and how inspirational you are, because listening to your interviews, I'm thinking, crap, I'm watching way too much TV, and I'm doing I'm not doing as much as I should be doing, and just kind of getting that jolt of energy from listening to you. I'm like, I really need to have Jamie on the show, so I'm very happy that you're here.
I'm buzzed to be here.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, talking about living the dream, we haven't even mentioned working with Arnold, Sacha Baron Cohen, Tom Hardy, Brad Pitt, among other guys. This conversation can really take us for a long, long time. So I don't know what you have allotted for this, but this may take a little while.
Awesome, sounds fantastic.
Awesome. All right, so let's start at the beginning, because from what I understand, acting was not your first career. It certainly was your first draw, but it wasn't your first career. So bring people up to date.
Yeah, not even my second, actually. Films in general have always been a huge part of my upbringing. It's been a big part of my access to culture, as it were. It's always been, sit down with mum and dad when you're sort of 5-6 years old. You start watching films. It was the draw of action films that really stuck with me. Arnold was a big influence, Stallone as well. So for me, there was always that ingrained thing of wanting to do something to do with entertainment, and wanting to do something that involved either the action element or the more energetic side of things. As life sort of goes on, a lot of things changed. I was very active in sport, so that those two parallels don't really cross very often. Not until you get to the end of one, and then you start the other. But so it's always been something that is very close to me. But it definitely wasn't the first or even the second career. I was in football for a very long time, and then I don't deal with regret very well or at all. I'm not a fan, so I'd rather know and it be a complete disaster. I'd rather try it, jump in, and it go absolutely tits up wrong, but at least I know. Or the flip side of it, I jump in and it goes well. So that was the process 10 years ago. Jump in and find out.
Yeah, and you did, and I have a lot of respect for you for doing that, because there are many people out there that are dreaming of something, and there are a few people who actually decide and go ahead and do it. And it's not like it was really easy for you, right? You jumped in, you did get your first gig fairly quickly, but it took you about 3 years to appear on these, one of these large productions. During that period of time, I don't know if you had, side hustle and other gigs that you were doing, but did at any point something start creeping in saying, maybe this is not going to work out?
So I was told I lucked out massively in terms of the fact that I quit my job in December, in December 2010, and made a free profile on a website. And yeah, it's testament to how in bad shape I must have been, because I got a role as a drug addict literally first week of January. So, but yeah, it was a very steady process. And the thing I got told was, to be an overnight success, it's going to take you 10 years. And I completely agree with that. I think there is no way you can jump from one career or one industry to another and know everything, or the subtle intricacies that go with being in one industry and another. The way you talk to some people in entertainment, it can't transfer across, and vice versa. The way you talk to people in sport or the way you talk to people in public relations, it doesn't always ebb and flow. So it was a lot of learning. It was a lot of humble pie. A lot of the time I had, as a rule, I never want to be the smartest man in the room ever.
Right.
I got told very early on, you should never be the smartest, richest, or most interesting person in the room. If you are, you're in the wrong room. Mm-hmm. So for me, I knuckled down, started learning, picked up a lot of books, and went to a lot of classes. And that for me was the graft and the hustle on a professional level, because if you want to be treated as a professional, you've got to act like a professional.
Absolutely. So no regrets during that 3-year span. And I know you said you don't deal well with regrets, but kept on staying positive. No negativity creeping in during that time.
The best way to explain it is, especially with the entertainment industry as a whole, it's the best worst mistake I ever made. So it's the hardest thing I've ever done. There is no guideline to it, because I've looked at method acting, Meisner, Stanislavski, you name the method or you name the technique, I've looked at it, I've read it, I've gone over it, I've sat in a class or spoken to someone who is a bona fide expert on it, and no one goes, do this, then do this, then do this, and then you'll get here. It doesn't work like that at all. I mean, you could do all those things and end up back further than when you started. So yeah, from that perspective, it wasn't regret, but it was like, right, well, if this is going to be worthwhile, you're gonna have to work for it. And the one thing that people always ask me is, what's it like? And I was like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but if you don't have a love for it, you'll never do it. And if you don't jump off, if you don't jump in, and if it's not 100% of what you're doing, if like you say, if you've got side hustles going on, or you're still stuck in a main job, it's that old Los Angeles joke. Oh, you're an actor in what restaurant? Yeah. And so from that perspective, it was a case of, no, I've got to go all in. And if I don't go all in, I'm going to be tethered to something else. And if I'm tethered to something, I'm always going to be pulled back. So yeah, no regrets in that. It was a case of, if I want it, I've got to go do it.
Right. But then again, and I don't need the details, but people who are watching this are going to say, well, that's great, but because you didn't have, big projects right away, you couldn't have had, enough money where it was supporting you just from the acting. So you had to do something else as you were learning, as you were growing. So were you, doing other work in the meantime?
So I have a degree from Brunel University, because I was a big advocate that you must have an education, regardless of what that education is and regardless of how you get it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's an MVQ, BSc, MSc, PhD, it doesn't matter. But have a grounding in education first, because that will be your bread and butter. That's the thing that gives you a foundation for being a professional individual, being a role model, being everyone's right to education, So from that perspective, I had earned enough money to jump in. But in saying that, and I don't view that as a luxury, I made sure that I was hustling for work the whole time. So I got myself on sets, and I've done stuff as a first AD. I've done stuff where I was shadowing producers, and I was picking up bits here and there. And the idea is that you do that to push yourself forwards. You're not going to jump. For every Dwayne Johnson that goes from elite to elite, you've got a million people that have to start here, and then they don't go straight up. They have to go across. So I knew it was going to be hard graft, and I knew that even if I had to fall back on money that I'd earned from working for the last 12 years, then fine, no issue. I mean, I've never had a normal job, is one way to put it. I thought it was very important to give back, so I've always done that. So from when I was 12 years old, I went back to my old primary school and I was teaching kids to read. I did a lot of stuff where it was a lot of community orientated give back, because if you can be that positive influence on someone who probably didn't have I don't come from luxury, but at the same time, I have been lucky in the fact that I've had a very supportive family. My parents made sure that I knew enough about the world and I had enough access to enough things that I could make my own choices. So my mindset was go back and give back. If these kids don't have parents that can teach them to read, if these kids don't have those things, go back and help. I got time, why not? So yeah, from that perspective, it was a case of it's going to be hard, and if I've earned enough to sit on for the moment, and I'm not overindulgent, I'm very humble when it comes to those sort of things. I don't need Gucci and things like that. So, you know, from that perspective, I was happy to live a humble existence. Big influence for me is Keanu Reeves from that respect. You know, I don't need mansions. I certainly don't need, you know, big sports cars and stuff like that. So that's something that has been a guiding thing throughout, is I'm not going into this because I want X, Y, Z amount of money or X, Y, Z amount of fame. It was because I know what I want to do and I want to perform. So it didn't matter how I got there. It was the fact that I was moving towards it and pushing towards it.
Yeah. Now that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for clarifying that, because again, you know, some actors think that I'm an actor and I'm only an actor, so I'm going to work my, you know, part-time job and a hustle job in order to support my acting endeavor while it continues growing, hopefully, which is a, you know, who knows in our acting world. But you did something else. You know, you had some, you know, foundation from your previous job, but then you said, I'm an actor, but I'm also going to be doing other things just within the industry. So you did AD, you did you know, stunts, you did some other stuff. So you continued working, and you know, moving ahead, you know, 10 years later, you're doing producing, you're doing a lot of these things. You continue to give back. So I think that's a really good. It's a really good thing for people to hear, that just because you're an actor does not mean that you can't go kind of across the industry and do jobs within that, because A, it'll help you make contacts, B, it'll, you know, get you some money in the process, C, it'll help you learn and understand the industry better so you can be more successful. So I think all of that is a really, really good lesson. Thank you.
Yeah, the entertainment industry as a whole has so many subtle intricacies, from the fact that it's not just about being the talent on the screen. It's not as easy as that, and it's the million and one jobs that go on before anyone turns on a camera. It's the 50 or 60 crew that have got to be brought together before a show can be made or before anything can be committed. So understanding all those jobs and how people do those jobs is just as important as going, yeah, I'm an actor, great, and that's it. Because it's that word just that I really don't like. I'm just an actor, or I'm just an AD, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. Anyone who thinks that way has got the wrong mindset. It's more a case of I am this, but I can be this. So from my perspective, it was, if I'm on a set and I'm watching the third AD, or I'm watching one of the runners, or I'm watching the PA, it's interesting to know what they're doing, when they're doing, how they're doing. Because at some point, someone might go, Jay, I need a first AD for a 3-day shoot. Okay, great. Yeah, I know how to do that. Or vice versa. Sitting in a casting room and watching a casting director work, understanding the process that they go through, not just a case of going in, script in hand, like, please, please just use me for everything.
Yeah.
It's understanding how casting directors work.
Yeah. And the reality is, you know, once you are that kind of person, right? And in the corporate world, by the way, for those who are not in the movie or entertainment business, you know, think of this instead of an I employee as a T employee. I employee is somebody who has depth in one particular area. T employee, somebody that has depth in the area, but also has depth across, and they can go and they can do multiple jobs. So it's
In
really
England, we
important.
call that a jack of all trades.
Right. But in this case, you are a master of one, but then you are, you're able to do other things as well, which gives you flexibility. In baseball, it's a utility player, right? So, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know all about being a utility player.
Right. But I think that's the part, because utility players are needed, and they're needed on more and more productions. And once you become a trusted member of that tribe, if you will, you're going to get invited. And that's what's been happening with you, because of people knowing just how serious you are about this, and how you're a good guy on set, and you do your job, and you're happy to help out and other things. You get now more opportunities because of it. And I think that's another lesson for everybody to know, that it's not just about, being a good guy, being a professional, but it's the, taking opportunities. Like some of your credits on the biggest productions that, we've mentioned are uncredited. Um, I would love to take any and all of those, because I would love to be a stormtrooper. I don't care if you're going to credit, how many stormtroopers are there. Just the experience of it, I will gladly take. So, but I think, you may have some that are looking at your career and saying, well, he's done huge projects, but all of them are uncredited, 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 uncredited. What do you say to them to explain why it doesn't really matter?
From my perspective, it's always been a case of opportunities don't necessarily arise in traditional ways. So a lot of the access and opportunities that happen in the UK, especially, is right place, right time, right person, and I'm incredibly grateful to some of the ADs that I've worked with, even during selection processes, where it was a case of Fury's a perfect example, actually. I ended up playing Private James, but in saying that, I was on Fury from quite literally day one all the way through to wrap. I did everything on that. I was involved with the AD department, helped out with stunt department. I was acting in it, doing action, firearms, you name it, I was probably doing it. And so were quite a few other guys that made this core unit. And from my perspective, that's the experience that mattered, because it was seeing how everyone worked and how everyone worked together and what was the end product of it. For me, I'm not one to go to the first or to the producer and say, look, can I have a credit, please? Those credits come when they come, and I'm genuinely not. I'm genuinely not worried about it, to be perfectly honest. It's been one of those where everyone in themselves knows what they have and haven't done, and from my perspective, it molded me and shaped me in a way in terms of how my career has moved. Being on those sets and seeing how those people work. I was blown away by Toby Heffman on Fury, because I thought him as a first AD was absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. He's now an executive producer on Star Wars, so it all sort of builds on itself, and it's been one of those where I do look at those and I go, okay, great, well, I did that on this and I did that on this, and then I look at what I've got over the next 2 years, and it's lead role in this, supporting in that, lead role in this, and the ends justify the means in that sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I agree with you. It's people get lost in the well, I didn't get supporting here, I didn't get a lead there. That's not what matters. Why you in this is the first question. And if you're in this because you love acting, then that's it. Stop thinking about anything else. Opportunities
Precisely.
will come if you're putting in the work and you're a good guy and you're professional, and it's going to happen. But please kind of explain one other other little difference between what people may perceive as a background actor versus somebody who has done these roles, but they're viewed as uncredited, or it shows up as uncredited.
So, like I said, it's very opportunistic in England. You get brought in because you have a certain skill set. I'm a massive advocate of having as many skills as feasibly possible. There's no such thing as being overskilled. So, from my perspective, the only people who mention the word overskilled are the ones that don't have the skills in the first place. So, a lot of the time I've been brought in either because I have experience in martial arts or sword fighting, firearms, well, whatever it might be, or I know someone on the production who's got me involved. What happens from there is people go, right, well, this scene now demands this, this, and this, and then suddenly you are elevated up a step and then up a step. So you've gone from being, just chucking in for an hour one day to you're spending a week on a film. So a lot of the time with that, it was a case of, it was just opportunity at the time, and then things grew. And conversely, things can shrink. So you a lot of the time, and it's a huge cliche, but I do kind of love it, is you do end up on the cutting room floor. And when that happens, that's life. And like I say, it's all about the experience. And if you can call on that experience and take that forward with you, that's far more important. I don't place weight in the paper or in IMDb or even Spotlight or whatever it might be. I don't place that much weight in my own CV. What I place weight in is my showreel, my ability, and then talking to people. Right. Because it's not the ones and zeros or the writing on paper, it's the people connection. And if you can be a people person, that's what's going to move things forward. People don't invest in paper, people invest in people. Yeah. So that for me is the key element. And it's going into those castings, it's going into those meetings with producers, casting directors, line producers, and being personable. And it doesn't matter. My parents always made sure that I understood this. It doesn't matter if you're the janitor or the CEO. Everyone gets treated the same respect, same amount of time, because everyone's worth exactly the same amount. So, and the most important thing you can give anyone is your time. So that for me is a case of, well, this casting director is sat there and going to give me their time. That's incredibly important. Or if I go to a meeting in London, it's, again, this person is giving up an hour of their time. The most expensive thing they can give me is an hour of their time. So yeah, from that perspective, it's more a case of, I don't worry about the black and white, I worry about the people.
Yeah, that's the right approach. Because when it all comes down to it, when anybody has to choose who they're going to work with, they want to work with the people who they trust and who they like and who they want to be around. And that's the most important part. And people are saying sometimes they see actors who and this is not a dig at you, this is just generalizing, but people may see somebody on screen in a production, they're like, well, that person is not really good, but I keep on seeing them in different productions. Well, that's why. First of all, they're good enough to be there, otherwise they wouldn't. And second of all, it's because it's a person that is trusted, it's a person that is liked, it's a person that is a professional. And that's the key. So if there's one universal kind of truth within acting, because there is no linear approach to anything, but within acting is be a professional, be a good guy, and be somebody that people actually enjoy working with.
Exactly. It's far more important to be a good person than it is to be a famous person. And you have to be in it in the first place in order to be involved. And a lot of the misgivings that people have about, I've seen him in this, this, and this, and it's nepotism, or it's this, or it's that. It's more a case of, no, they've put themselves in a situation where people know who they are. One of the biggest things that people keep saying to me, it's who you know. And for me, that's a misnomer. So about 10 years ago, it used to be what you know. It used to be just your skill set, put it down in front of you, that's it, that's enough. Then it was who you know. Take the skill set, put it in front of someone. That doesn't work anymore, because now you have gatekeepers. So now it's who knows you.
Yeah.
And that's the really important thing, because it's who knows you on the other side of the door that's going to open the door a little bit so that you can put your stuff there. So it's moved on, and it'll move on again. And that's why Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're incredibly important in terms of just being a performer, because people have to know who you are and what you're doing. I hate self-promotion. I am genuinely the worst. I haven't updated my Instagram in a year. That's really bad. Like I have like material, and I've been on things and I've done stuff, and I compulsively can't do it. It's like I hate the whole self-promo thing, but it is a fundamental part of being in entertainment, because it's not a case of your skill set. It's not a case of people looking at your skill set. It's people knowing who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they can't cast you, or they can't employ you, or they can't work with you. And that's the fundamental of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love talking, and I certainly love talking about myself, but the promotion of promoting yourself, that's a different kind of a different beast, because then my kind of my sensibilities come into play of I don't want to brag, and it's I don't want to
Yeah.
kind of elevate myself or seem like I'm elevating myself. So the little trick that I've used in order to help with that is I share things from a personal perspective. I share things that I find could help other people and could help inspire other people, and I feel good about that. Or I share things that are funny to me, and maybe they're going to be funny to somebody else because they can lighten somebody's day. And then on the professional side, I kind of do a bit of that as well. And then, once I started the show in May of this year, May 20th was the first interview, is it all became of, well, I think this is a great resource. All right, I'm not charging people to watch this. This is all free. And I get to speak to amazing people, and I'm learning a lot about the industry. I want to share this information. So it became really just about, hey, I need to put this out there, not because I'm elevating myself, but I want people to listen. I want people to view it and to grow through these conversations. So I I found kind of a way to trick myself into staying true, but make it so that I'm still all over social media. So I don't know. Maybe you can do this some
No,
sort of
I
tip
get
for you.
that. I get that. It's the art of the humble brag. Is
Yeah.
the way to put it. And like what I mean, the irony is that we're in England. We're about to go into a second lockdown, but I
Yeah.
used lockdown to at least give myself a bank of stuff that I can, because I use later to sort of schedule postings and stuff like that, and I just haven't pressed the go button, because it's that's the that's the worst part of it, is like right, it's all done now, I'm not going to share it. So that's been the one bit. So yeah, you're quite right. It's for me, if I can do it, and I'm just the average Joe, I guarantee other people can do it. It's something that I'm putting together in 2021, is the anyone can do anything channel, and it's purely proof of concept. But the idea being is I'm going to put myself in situations where I have no training, no background, no foundations, and give myself 1 week to complete whatever it might be. So whether it be horse riding, archery, evasion driving, whatever it might be for that week. And the proof that what the outcome from that will be is purely to inspire people to go and do what they want to do. That's all it is. It's not no self-flagellation for me at all, because it's going to scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But it might inspire people to go and do what they actually want to do.
I love it. I love the concept. Absolutely. It's a great idea. And it actually, you and I should probably talk offline as well, because one of my ideas that I started a while ago and I never finished because I had so many other things going on is I find that we as people, especially right now, we have many holes within our, kind of development. And as men, there are many things that we should know that we don't. As
100%.
women, there are many things that we should know that we don't. We are kind of, we're just scratching the surface on things that we really need to know that we're not doing. So I wanted to create kind of a school that fills in all of these gaps.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be called School of Human Potential because I
Nice.
wanted to create well-rounded individuals, and then have a class in this, and this.
I
Right?
think
Because
2020 has definitely highlighted that we have a distinct lack of being well-rounded.
yeah,
I mean, social media has highlighted for me in a massive way the dangers of open access and the dangers of having too many voices. I mean, I love a conspiracy theory as much as the next person because I love a good laugh, but the dangers of that and the dangers of lack of education, which is what you're pointing at, is the human potential of it. Because there's that old adage of, this is how much you know, this is how much you know you don't know, and this is how much you don't know you don't know.
Right.
And that's the key, is there's so much in the world and there's so much to experience and so much to do. And one is the fear of not doing, and or vice versa, the fear of doing. And there's also that whole, everyone loves a comfort zone. Everyone loves the fact that you can just do the bare minimum. You can just get away with doing that, and that's it.
And this to be true. And I found that as soon as I step outside the comfort zone and do something that freaks me out, is when I not only learn about myself and feel better about my ability to handle it after, but I just expand and grow exponentially, because
Exactly.
you see just how incredible it is to do some things that you're fearful of and how rewarding it is. And it imbues you with this incredible sense of being able to take things on and accomplish it and handle it, and to view life through a different prism. Because social media right now, right, there's so much going on, a lot of it is not true, and the ability to decipher that, as opposed to be in a specific echo chamber and only look at it from one perspective, we need that ability now more than ever.
Yes.
So it's
we also need the ability to step away. And my biggest problem at the moment that I have with access to technology, and also smart technology as a whole, is we are developing a whole generation of addicts. And I don't mean addicts as in your traditional addicts. I don't mean people who abuse substances. I don't mean anything to do with that. I mean quite literally addicts that are addicted to their phone, addicts that are addicted to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. There's an addiction going on. There was a study done in the US not too long ago, and because obviously smartphones had to be around, and it was 3 generations. So it was people over the age of 55, people in the 30 to 40 category, and people in the 18 to 25s. And it was, what did they do with their phone while they were in the office? People in the over 50s had their phone either in their pocket, in their breast pocket, or off to one side. People of my generation had it next to their mouse. So it's still there. The next generation coming through had it in front of their keyboard, looking at them. So they had a break between their work and what they were addicted to. And it's this fundamental need to have immediate gratification and that endorphin release. Because what we're starting to see now is there is a chain reaction, and it's this whole clickbait thing as well with YouTube. You are trying to find something, and when you find it, you get an endorphin release, and that endorphin release fulfills the cycle. The problem is you're looking for something, you don't find it, it then goes back. So you don't get your endorphin kick. So immediately you go looking for something else, and then something else, and then something else. That's why you see people mindlessly scrolling through, because they're waiting for that endorphin release to actually get their kick. So I have a huge issue and I have a huge worry about what's coming next in terms of uh, dystopia is too strong a word, but you've got this really sort of weird disconnect between human interaction. I know the irony of us talking on phones and Skype and Zoom and stuff, but it is that problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's that ironic because again, we both understand the prism through which we're looking at it, and we're both trying to change that paradigm. My videos, these conversations are long conversations. This is not a 5 minute or 10 minute spot. So I have trouble with people staying through with these conversations because of that immediate gratification. And what I find more worrisome is that as the society grows up with this idea of immediate gratification, um, we miss the whole boat on all of the things that take time and take hard work and dedication, because you don't get immediate gratification out of anything that's worthwhile. Anything you have to have a work ethic. You're going to start at something, you're going to suck at it. Most of the time, you're going to suck at it, and you need to have enough patience, and you need to have enough drive and ability to stick with it until you get better and better and better, and then you start seeing some results, and then you have to continue climbing those levels. We know that from sport. They kind of get that from video games, but I don't know if there's enough of that process where you're going to suck for a while until you get better and better. So there are
I think
some
it used to
things.
be
Yeah.
our generation of video games did that because we had a learning curve.
Yeah.
Certainly with the SNES and the Mega Drive,
Yeah.
a lot of the games that were on those consoles in the N64, we had a learning curve that we went through with it, and it was a steep learning curve, but you got gratification at the end.
Yep.
The inherent problem with video games now is one, the industry is split in two. One is the mobile devices, and the other is consoles.
Right.
With consoles, it can be a learning curve, but the difficulty gradient is a lot easier now.
Right.
The other problem is you've got self-fulfilling or idle games that you get on mobile devices, and the problem is there is no learning curve. There is no sort of trial and error and working towards something. Whether it be stuff like the whole idle series, where quite literally you just drag things and they touch. Candy Crush, where for the most part there isn't a learning curve.
Right.
And that has taken something away, because you're not, even on an enjoyment level, you're not working towards creating something, you're not working towards developing something. And that's something that fundamentally we have lost, because it's easier to give people gratification than it is to give people a challenge.
Right. And that's what, a lot of the people who are saying, people get trophies for every now place now. They are saying that, but I think what they're trying to say is that, getting your trophy of being number one or the second or third place, it takes time to get there. So if you're getting your trophies for everything else, you're missing the point. You're missing the point of having to work hard and pushing and getting there to get that trophy.
Exactly.
So that's what's behind all of it.
I think everyone deserves recognition, regardless of whether you're the elite or whether you're the amateur. I just watched the Le Mans 24-hour race with my parents, and it didn't matter if you were in the prototype Le Mans car that goes 255 miles an hour, or whether you were in the Porsche 911 that was at the back of the grid. The fact was, getting to 24 hours, whether you were first in your class or last in your class. And that analogy for me sort of like went across, and it was, there are people winning Oscars and Grammys and Emmys and all the rest of it, and that's awesome. But there are also people that are just posting their work online. And that immediately is, again, awesome, because what they've done is they've gone, here's my stuff, look at it. And that is the hardest part, is you're going to be judged, and that it's going to be 90% positive, but there is going to be 10%. Or conversely, if you're Tommy Wiseau, it's going to be 90% negative and 10% positive. But it's that whole thing of, if you don't ever put yourself out there to do it in the first place, then one, you'll never know, and two, you can't be rewarded for it. You can't get anything for it, and it's better to be in the race. And I grew up with a lot of people that would say that second place is the first loser, and I can't agree with that. Because it took a lot just to come second, you know, and it also takes a lot to come last. I mean, just to be in that race in the first place. So, yeah, coming back to like the whole analogy of it, is it's that whole ability to know that you've worked for something, and that for me is far more important than any sort of immediate gratification.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's, we'll see what happens, right? I have a, you know, an 11-year-old and a 16-year-old, and kind of observing them and trying to teach them certain things. You tend to see that if they're not good at something right away, they don't want to do it, and that drives me crazy
Because it's
because
not enjoyable.
yeah, like how, that's not how life works, right? That's not how life works. You're not going to get immediate gratification. And you know, when people talk about millennials and how, you know, potentially difficult they are to work with in the workplace, which I'm not sure I agree with, but a part of that is that the people expect, you know, certain gratification, and they expect, you know, wins, and they expect thanks, and they expect, you know, to be quote unquote cuddled, because that's what they grew up with, and it's a different structure. And you know, once you get to the workplace, you're not going to get that. You know, some things are changing for the better, but otherwise, you know, you have to adjust. And are they ready for that adjustment? Where they've, you know, spent the first 18 or 20 years of their lives doing something that you know, doesn't build them up for it. So we'll find
I mean,
out.
I was lucky in terms of the fact that
Mm.
I I went to a all boys comprehensive school, so that was quite literal school of hard knocks
Yeah.
in that respect. It was still a trade school, so we still had guys that were learning carpentry, mechanics, electrics, all that sort of stuff. So, but on top of that, we had a sports program and scholarship program and all those sort of things. So, from my perspective, you either worked hard
Mm.
or you didn't get anywhere. And I never had an issue with being in the top set of everything. I didn't worry about that. It didn't come easy, but for me, it was the fear of dropping out of that I didn't want to deal with. So I pushed myself on, and it wasn't ever handed to me. And it was one of those where, whether it be science, maths, English, education wise, it was a case of I had to be at the top, because that's where the learning happens. That's where things develop. So from my perspective, it was a case of, if you put the hard graft in now, it gets a lot easier later on. Um, and I'll hold my hands up. I've probably forgotten a lot of that, in terms of just the stuff that I had to learn to get to the end. And uh, getting a degree from Brunel, it was very much a case of, that was my logical end. I was never going to be a master, but I knew I could be a bachelor. So from that perspective, it was a case of, I can put enough graft in now and finish this off and do my education justice. And I haven't used it since, ironically. I have a degree in sports science and biomechanics, and I think I may have used it once to show an arm break properly. But yeah, it's one of those where I could draw a line under education and go, look, I know I did it, and that was far more important. And I don't think I even put the letters at the end anymore, but it was good to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it made you who you are, and I think that the ability to have a self drive and knowing that you're working towards something and it's going to take time is what made you successful. You know, now coming back to your acting career, that's what made you successful, and that's what continues to drive you forward and getting you, you know, all of these projects where you are lead, and then expanding into your producing and speaking endeavors. Um, for those people, who kind of want to know what it's like on set, and being around these incredible people that you had a chance to work with. You've mentioned Fury. Brad Pitt is on Fury. John Bernthal, my goodness, I'm mispronouncing his name. Bernthal is on Fury as well. These are guys that I have tremendous amount of respect for as people and as artists. What has your experience been like around them?
So the best person to spend time with was John. He is awesome. So we were doing proof of concept photography in the back lot of Pinewood, and they'd set it out like a blasted out German town, and they had the Fury tank, and we were doing like how flame bars are going to work in front of camera, all these sort of things. And I'm just sat on this rubble, decked out in full World War II American Army gear.
Yep.
And then John just plonks down next to me and just sort of leans in. He goes, "You all right, man?" And then that was it. And we just started chatting. And he's the most endearing guy. He wonderful family man, considering the characters he plays and the like hyper aggressive, real sort of mean characters. He is the most wonderful man. We sat talking about how he goes walking in the mountains with his kids and his dogs. He had his son do his makeup every day. The oil tracks that were in his hair and all that sort of stuff. There's a fantastic picture on Instagram of his son sat on his lap drawing the oil on. So John was an absolute delight, absolutely wonderful. Scott Eastwood as well. Scott was absolutely a wonderful guy. He'd never had Haribo before, like Malwam Haribo. It's like we have sticks of candy over here, and he'd never had them before. So we were smuggling sweets onto set to give to Scott, which was quite cool. And Brad's a consummate professional. Brad Pitt is, he gets in, he gets the job done, and then back to the family, back to doing what, there was no bad experiences for me on Fury. I learned from everyone, from watching David Ayer just get things done. And he's an absolute machine. Toby Heffman, the first, was incredible. He knew everyone's name, whether you were a background artist that was so far in the distance, or whether you were coming on for a day as a supporting, or whether you were making the coffee. He knew who you were. And the same goes for Fraser Fennell Ball, who's an award-winning AD. Eidetic memory. He knew absolutely everyone. He knew what they were doing, when they were doing it, how they were doing it. And those guys made things so much better for everyone, because they welcomed you. They made you part of the crew. They made you part and parcel of the whole project, which was incredible. And that sort of stayed with me more than running around getting blown up and firing a 50 cal machine gun and all these sort of things, because that was the human element. That was the turning up and we need you in the AD department today. So you were immediately sort of like, you were getting commed up, and then you were putting your stuff on, and then you were part of the AD team that was marshalling 500 people on a battlefield, with tanks and explosions and all these sort of things. And that experience in itself is far more important to me than anything around those. And being sat on a tank, just chatting with John and Shia and Michael, all had so much time and were watching Shia just encompass a character. Absolutely incredible, because a lot of people have a lot of misgivings, and I saw firsthand the depth that he goes in to really portray a character. It's not a method that I agree with. I like to hear action, I like to hear cut, and then I go back to annoying people. And that's how I operate. I go and sit by the DOP and start asking him really annoying questions about camera angles, things that they don't want to talk to him about. And watching him do it, it was incredible because he lived that character, and he lived for that whole the whole thing with the German village and all those sort of parts. And for me, it was incredible to watch because it was a transformation, and I do have to respect him for it.
Yeah, it's again not my approach. I never want to snap out of who I am for the role. But I actually heard Shai is incredible actor. So from that perspective, nothing but respect. John actually talked about that too. You know, on the Punisher, um, he he was saying that it's hard for him to kind of snap in and snap out. So he said for the duration, his family didn't enjoy him very much because in his words, he said, "I'm not good enough to kind of to snap in and out, so I have to be connected as much as I can through the shoot." So
And that speaks a lot to John's humility, though, that he can just go, look, I'm not good enough to switch on, switch off. And I agree with that. I've just done 2 festival pieces over the last week or so for a new for Road Festival, and one of them was a one-man piece talking to an artificial intelligence character. So essentially, it was me in a room talking to myself,
Yep.
and I'll be the first to admit that emotionally speaking, it will take me a while to get anywhere. So, I mean, I had a fantastic director who was more than accommodating and let me get where I need to be and all that sort of stuff. And it was literally a case of, I need 30 seconds to a minute beforehand before we go into this, because if you want something emotionally charged, I got to go find it from somewhere first.
Yeah.
And I follow Meisner technique. So from that perspective, I've got to go and create an imaginary circumstance. So give me a minute. But that's better for me. I actually had this whole thing about Meisner was the fact that it's a fantastic toolbox. It's not a toolkit, but it's great for putting things in and pulling bits out and making it work. And with John's a perfect example of knowing where your limitations are and then adding something and then putting something in. And I never take my work home. I never take my characters home. Literally, my characters start at action and end with cut, and barring research, of course. But yeah, everything else stays on camera.
Yeah, it's a healthier way to live. I certainly I think so.
Yeah, I would definitely. I couldn't do what Daniel Day-Lewis does.
No.
I mean, I sort of had the joke a while back of it must have been insane to live with Abraham Lincoln for 6 months. That I couldn't do that. For me, it's very much a case of you have to be able to escape it. To live it for that long, it'll eat away at you, and that's not healthy.
Right. Yeah. I have respect and admiration for those that go to the depth, and I understand why they win the awards because they
Yeah.
really inhabit those people. But that's not how I want to live my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I at the start of towards the end of last year, I had put on a lot of weight for a couple of more demanding roles, and I was 100 and this is English money, but I was 121 kilos, so about 17, 18 stone,
Yeah.
and I was not healthy. I was not, and I felt it. I mean, I was big and for the most part relatively powerful and strong, but I wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And lockdown for me was a perfect time to go actually switch it on its head.
Yeah.
And if someone wants me to play a bigger character, put me in a suit, give me a prosthetic. It's much more important to me to be physically healthy. I don't talk about it very often, but I have an underlying medical condition that I've had for the last 4 years. But essentially I have chronic pain disorder. So I'm just in pain all day, every day. But for me, it was a case of my health has to play a part in this. If it doesn't, and that's the one thing that you can't let go of is your own physical being. because that goes hand in hand with your psychological well-being.
And acting is so incredibly draining, emotionally, physically, psychologically, energetically, and it's a really, really difficult thing to do. People think that it's just running around and pretending to be somebody else. They have no idea how difficult it actually is.
They only see one take. It's the 57 other takes.
And the overnight shoots and all the coverages and everything else. It's ridiculous.
It's when you've nailed a 3-minute monologue, hitting every beat, and then they go, "Yeah, we're going to do one more for safety,"
Yeah.
and
And then
that's it. Yeah.
And there's like all of the lines somehow disappear.
Yeah.
The short-term memory that we have as actors is amazing, but let's hopefully they don't have to reshoot anything, because I'm not going to remember the lines by that time. I'm going to relearn them again because it goes in, I get it very quickly, which thankfully is something that I've over the time it kind of got to a point where now I can learn lines really quickly. But next week I'm not going to remember them. That's not how the brain operates anymore.
Exactly.
Gary Oldman, one of your favorites, I know, when he was playing Churchill, he specifically said, no, I'm not going to gain the weight. I need a suit because it's really unhealthy and I can't do that. So
especially for characters like that, because I follow a lot of stuff that Christian Bale does, and the weight that he put on for Cheney, I and Jared Leto as well. The guys both of them are incredible actors, and obviously Gary Oldman is one of my key inspirations for everything that I do. But you don't have to change yourself physically to embody a character. I don't agree that you need to physically change yourself in order to facilitate that character's realism. Jared Leto really unhealthily put on a lot of weight for a role and then lost it all for Joker, and conversely Christian Bale did the same between Machinist and Batman, and obviously for Vice. And for me, I think Gary Oldman had the right approach. Put me in a suit. Prosthetics are good enough now. I agree with that. If it comes to that point, and I have had this discussion with a few people, it's put me in a fat suit and I will deal with being in the fat suit. I have no issue with that at all.
Yeah, I agree. And Chris certainly did well with Thor, and it worked out sufficiently. I didn't have any issues with it.
I think when you look like Chris Hemsworth, I think your abs and your arms are insured for a certain amount.
and they should be, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So going to a few more of your projects, because I can't not mention them since I enjoyed them so much. In 2014, you went from Fury onto Kingsman, which I was blown away. I really enjoyed the movie tremendously. I don't know how many times I've seen it, since that, and you get a chance to be in a scene that's iconic.
Yep.
I love that whole scene, and you get a chance to be on set with Sam, and with Mark, and with Taron. That must have been a really interesting kind of.
Taron's awesome. He's proper salt of the earth, would be the best way of put it. And it was my first experience meeting him, and he's such a lovely guy. This again was one of those where I got a phone call saying, "Can we trust you with a gun?" I was like, "Yes." I have a lot of squaddy and bootneck friends, and they do a lot of stuff, and it was one of those where, right, we're going to be very close to him. There's going to be a lot of firearms and explosions and all this sort of stuff. We need people we can trust, and that was how that came about. And the film as a whole, we didn't know what we were shooting when we were shooting it, in terms of, right, now everyone's heads are getting blown off, and it was like, what? And then they sort of like, so from that perspective, it was one of those where you don't have any idea of the end product, but it was like, go all out anyway. And find that sort of middle ground with it. But awesome experience, and again, really good people, you know.
Yeah, and if we thought your 2014 was iconic, next year was even better. My goodness, 2015, you did Mission Impossible and Star Wars. Um,
I mean, I lucked out massively. I'm indebted to the AD department on Fury, because I got on really well with them, and they're absolutely wonderful people. They're consummate professionals, but they're also good human beings, which is, again. And I got a phone call, and it was a UAE number, and I was like, do I or do I not answer this? Because 9 times out of 10 you don't answer it.
right.
But I answered it, and AD phoned me and was like, we're shooting in Abu Dhabi. We're actually in Skywalker Valley at the moment. I'm calling you from Skywalker Valley, which is the bit where Rey slides down. And do you want to come out and be one of the first new stormtroopers on Star Wars? And yeah, never been more grateful to answer a phone call. And it was one of those where it was like, I spoke with my agent. I was like, I've got to go. It's Star Wars, and that for me, that experience again, being in. I try and speak every language to a phonetic standard if I can, and so I was like, can what do they speak in Abu Dhabi? I was like, can I speak Arabic? And then it was like, right, so I'm in the UAE, and it's an amazing culture. I've never felt more safe in a place. Me and guy Joe Watts, really fantastic guy. We were out there together, and walking around Abu Dhabi, taking in the culture and taking in all the things that were in and around it. And then it ramps up again because you turn up and things get real. And I just come off Fury and Mission Impossible, and I was quite big, and I'm not a model in any way, shape, or form. And I walk into the costume department, and I won't use the expletive he used, but the armorer went, oh. And I walked in, and there was all these 6'2", 6'4", svelte looking model guys, and I knew there and then, I'm not one of you guys. And I wore every costume they had. I put on the flame trooper, the squad commander, every different version of the stormtrooper armor they had. And in the end, they made me a custom armor because they were like, we can't fit you into anything because you'll break the flame trooper armor if you breathe. And so in the end, the heavy gunner stormtrooper came about because they had this World War II German officer webbing, and they had what they were calling the BFG. And the BFG was the squad automatic laser that the heavy gunner uses. So in the end, what they did is they used the webbing to tie me in to the armor so that when I was running around and doing all this sort of stuff in the middle of the desert, I didn't pop out. So he tied me in, got me tight, and then went, right, don't breathe. Now go out in 45-degree heat and run around for a bit. And it was incredible, and I loved every second of it. The armor was just big enough that you could put ice packs down your back to cool you just enough. You couldn't feed or water yourself once you were in the armor, so you suddenly got very friendly with the other stormtrooper because you were watering each other and feeding each other. Everyone was so kind and so lovely about the whole thing, and everyone came together because it wasn't your parents' Star Wars, and it wasn't the prequels. It was something new. And again, because I'd worked with that AD department before, I ended up on my down days being back on set helping the ADs. And we had this bit where you'll remember the TIE fighters fly over dropping all the bombs behind Ray and behind Daisy and John.
Yeah.
And just before that take's about to happen, we've got the cameras coming through, and in the distance, and this is that set was practical. That was a huge set. Must have been best part of like a good 1,000 meters square. And in the far corner, this heavy loader is coming around from one of the valley corners. It's this huge yellow truck, and it was one of those where, like, if these go off and that's in the background, this is like a wasted shot. So I'm sprinting across the middle of this film set, waving my hands. In the end, I jump up on it. It's like, reverse, get out of the way, move it back. And it was those moments where it was like saving the shot and that sort of stuff. And it was incredible. I got to play some Scavenger characters as well. I felt so bad for the costume department because I'm not small, and all their costumes were designed for guys that were much smaller and more athletic looking than me. And I was doing this somersault over a sand dune as parts of TIE Fighter get dropped down, and we're scavenging for it. Every take, without fail, I split my trousers in half.
Oh,
and every take, without fail, I got kimbled back into it every take. And I just had to stand there and apologize perpetually. I was like, I'm really sorry, I've done it again, I'm so sorry. But it looked good, right? And then, so yeah, I mean, that whole experience from start to finish was incredible. You couldn't pay me enough money to get back in that costume. Absolutely not. It was awesome at the time. I don't think I'd do it again, in terms of just, there's no comfort involved with that at all. But wouldn't change it for the world. It was incredible.
Yeah. But yeah, we can talk about all sorts of other experiences that you had. But if for actors who haven't been on these large sets, who haven't worked on these multi-million-dollar productions that you've been a part of, what would be kind of your top 3 things that you would say to the actors of, when you get on that set, you need to do A, B, and C?
The first thing is do your job, the first and foremost. And if that's the only thing you do, then do that. Because that is the one thing that everyone wants, is just everyone to do their bit. No one slacks off, everyone does their job. The second thing is to watch and learn everyone all the time. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter if it's craft services, and don't get me wrong, I've spent a lot of time at craft services, but is whether it be the people there or the AD or the director, whoever it is, watch them and appreciate and learn. And that would be most important. And the last thing is, when you're on a set, be willing to do everything. Whether it's picking up mats for the stunt coordinator, whether it's making coffee for the guys that you're with, making sure everyone's fed, watered, or staying behind and de-rigging. It doesn't matter, but being more than just one job. So do your job, watch everyone else, and then help out where you can would be the 3 things that I would say would be most important. And that obviously goes without saying, be nice, be kind, don't be a jerk. Those ones tend to go, as a take as given.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Let's talk about some of the other things that you've been doing. You ventured out into producing, and then you get to live out another one of your dreams. You get to not only do something with Eddie Hall, and Eddie's awesome, but you got to meet Arnie, and you get to do it's not out yet, right? Or it's in post-prod?
No, COVID made sure it's not out yet.
Yeah, it'll be out. It'll be out soon. It's called The Beast. It's a great kind of documentary. But what was that like? Just meeting.
So I'm massively indebted to my business partner, Winston Ellis. I met Winston just over 2 years ago now, and I came in with like sort of bright-eyed, bushy tail. I've got this many projects, and he was like, "Yeah, calm down. let's take it slow." And it was one of those where like I was super energetic about absolutely everything that I was doing. And I had a project here and a project here and a project here. He sat down with me and we tailored a plan. And I mean, Winston has done Batman, Pirates of the Caribbean. He's been around, and he's been doing this for 30 odd years. And coming from a sports background and being in entertainment, the Beast was a perfect opportunity to step, because I'd already produced with Camelot Films. I'd done Winter Ridge, and that as fiction was a challenge. It was a Midsummer Murders sort of thing, and it had its own challenges to it. But to go into documentary was completely new. So me and Winston, we were brought onto this project, and at the time it was a lot smaller. It was, and Eddie is incredible. Eddie's story is incredible, and he's such a wonderful guy. His story as a whole is something that is genuinely inspiring, because he is, like I say, salt of the earth, but genuine, kind, and a lovely guy. So to have Winston as a mentor taking me through that, and then to be working with someone like Eddie, who he's worked so hard to be where he is, and to have that title of World's Strongest Man is an incredible achievement. So the Beast, it drew a lot of parallels for me. I make no secret of the fact I'm a huge Jason Statham fan, and it's only been sort of recently that people go, well, what was Statham doing before? And he was a diver, and there's pictures of him in Canada doing Olympic diving. So this whole thing of what happens when you're a sports star and you are at the peak and there's nothing left for you to accomplish, what happens next? And I was brought into this first meeting, and I was doing my standard thing of keeping very quiet, smiling, listening, and just taking it in. And it rang true with me, this whole thing where I've seen Jason Statham do this, I've seen Vinnie Jones do this, Terry Crews, Dolph Lundgren, and the most iconic and the person that sort of set the template for this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger blazed the trail for people like Carl Weathers to go from being a linebacker to being an action hero. And so for me, it was like, so we're looking at this cookie cutter template, but so few people do it. And why? And it's this whole thing of, yeah, you are the elite, but how do you transfer across? How do you do that? And that's what the Beast is about, is that study of the trials and tribulations that you go through. Can you then go through them again once you've been at the top? Is it a case of you go from the top and you go to the top? Or is it a case you go to the top and you go to the bottom? Perfect examples right now are Dwayne Johnson, John Cena, Mr. Kennedy, who they already have iconic careers. So, I mean, with Dwayne Johnson, there's not a person in the world who doesn't know who Dwayne Johnson is. Dwayne Johnson is our generation's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes. And John Cena has done very much the same thing. So for me, it was seeing what are the parallels and how do we show those parallels. And working with Chris Fretwell, who's the writer-director, his vision for it is incredible in terms of showing how much it is about the mental aptitude and your own drive and willpower. And it's not just about ability, because inherently you don't know if you've got the ability or not because you haven't done it. Yeah. So it's not as easy as that. But it's knowing that someone has walked that line, and can you walk that line as well? Or can you walk a parallel line or a similar line? So the Beast is all about that. And it's got so much to do with men's mental health. It's got to do with the ability to deal with being elite, which is something that I think in modern phraseology, we don't appreciate enough of what it takes to be elite. We have a certain expectation. We have you are a influencer, you are a performer, you are XYZ. We don't actually appreciate the fact that it probably took you 10,000 hours to get there. And that in itself is quite incredible. So you've already put 10,000 hours in. Are you now going to put another 10,000 in? Is that the correlation? So the Beast is a study in that. And it's also a study in men's mental health. It's also a study in just how the entertainment industry can be. And we've got some incredible stuff where we have put Eddie quite literally in Arnold's footsteps, where we have recreated the bar scene from Terminator 2 in a bar in Stoke with Eddie as the T-800. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And it, again, is one of those where it's like, right, this is iconic. This is Arnold's breakout good guy role. Like, no one saw him as a good guy at this point. This is what he did. So for me, The Beast has so many more levels to it than just simply a documentary about a person. It covers a lot more than that.
Agreed. Absolutely. All right. I know that I have about 20 more questions for you, but we should probably wrap this up for those people who want instant gratification. So let's wrap it up with this. If you had a chance to go and talk to yourself, 10 years ago when you were just starting out acting, and you had a chance to give one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
It's going to be hard to do it anyway.
I love it.
Yeah, I because I wouldn't change this. I don't have a regret for what I've done. It would be reassurance would be the avenue I would take with that, and it would purely be to say to myself, it is going to be hard graft. And I pretty much knew that going into it anyway, but to reassure myself, yeah, it's going to be a hard go, but we're not going to count 2020. No one's counting 2020, but looking at 2021,
yeah,
that's where you got to work towards. So yeah, that's what it would be. It's going to be hard to do it anyway.
I love it. It's going to be hard to do it anyway. That's perfect. That's perfect. Jamie, listen, it's really a pleasure. I would love for you to come back again so we can continue this discussion.
Guaranteed, 100%.
I know that I thoroughly enjoyed it and I've gotten a lot out of it. I'm hoping that you as the you as viewers or users of this information, there you go, are getting something out of it as well. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. We know you love acting as much as we do, and that's why we do this for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.